Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. And today I have an Olympic gold medalist and, now playing professionally in her home state, Jordan Larson. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah, so happy you're able to take the time and really appreciate it. So the way we start things off is we do 3 random questions. So are you ready?
As ready as I'll, as
All
I'll ever
right.
be. Yep.
Most interesting place you've ever played a match in?
Oh, I think there was a gym in Dominican, where it was kind of outside inside. So there was a lot of rain happening, right? So you could kind of feel the elements, but obviously not in the
Yeah.
elements. The ceiling kind of started leaking a couple times, and
Oh my
I
God.
just remember oh my gosh, we're gonna play, and we're wiping down the court as we're going, and yeah, that was kind of a core memory for sure.
All right. So now, this one really doesn't apply anymore, really, because you're not playing, in another country. But when you did play in another country and you came back home, what was that home cooked meal you looked forward to the most?
Yeah, I think for me it was like a Mexican meal somewhere, right? Whether it's even just Chipotle
Yeah.
or like a good taco joint. I feel like overseas, that's one area that it's not their strong suit, it's their
Yeah.
strong suit in other areas. But I always felt like that was just like my go-to that I really wanted to do. So
All right. And last question. So I had Kelly Hunter on, and when she was on, I asked her, who has a better shoe game? Was it her, Jalen, Coach Cook, or you? And she said you. So now, Jordan, now with Love Omaha, who has the better shoe game on your team?
oh goodness. I still think I would put myself up there. I definitely have. I've started kind of a shoe wall. I don't know if
Uh-oh.
that's a thing, but it's becoming kind of dangerous. So, but I have a shoe problem, and I will gladly admit it. And it's kind of like, what outfit can I wear? And kind of it kind of goes around the shoes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a thing. So, but I'm trying to think if there's a close second. I don't know. I don't think anybody else is as crazy as me. So.
All right, there we go. So how's the season going so far?
Going well so far. Yeah, we are 3-1 right now, and I think we are kind of on a uphill trend. We had a little hiccup last weekend, but I think this league's going to be pretty hard, and just because we're playing each other so much
Yeah.
and really high level playing, and so I think it'll be good and good competition.
Let's go back to the beginning. Most people probably know, but where are you from?
Yes, I'm originally from Hooper, Nebraska. It's a small town here in Nebraska. About 800 and I don't even know, 889 is the population right now, I think, or something
Oh
close to
boy.
that. And yeah, unfortunately now we have a bypass, so it's you actually don't actually drive through our town anymore. It's kind of sad. But yeah, it was a good place to grow up.
Yeah.
My dad was a farmer. He still is farming.
Wow.
And yeah, my mom lived in town, so I kind of got the best of both worlds. And yeah, it's really where everybody knew you and really supported. And yeah, and I got to play all the sports, I think that's what I'm most grateful for, is that I
Yeah.
really had time to do other things and be a part of other events. So I'm grateful for that piece of it. So.
And then, when did you discover volleyball after, and what made you, what was the hook it had on you?
Yeah, like I said, I played multiple sports, and so I really got to kind of take a break from volleyball at times, which I think even even though I wanted to dive into it more, I think the break kind of allowed me to fall in love with the sport even more when the
Yeah.
times I was playing in it. And so I started at 8 with my parents were coaching me at the YMCA locally, and then I really got into club volleyball was kind of just coming onto the scene,
Yeah.
and being in a small town, we had to drive. So I drove 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes multiple times a week to practice. But I started playing club at 12, and that's really when it kind of started to grow. And my parents obviously, we're middle class, but club dues are expensive, and
Uh-huh.
how they framed it to me was like, hey, we're making an investment here, and not almost we expect you, right? I think there wasn't that, but I definitely felt like this is my job,
Hmm.
and if I want to get where I want to get, better take it seriously, and my parents are going to invest time and energy into it. So I think I took that seriously from a very young age. So I'm really grateful for my parents kind of setting me up for a great situation. And yeah, I just really fell in love with the game then.
Nice. And clearly how, playing club was so important to, everybody who plays club. It helps them so much to get to that next level. How
Yep.
important was how important was club for your development to, take it to that next level?
Yeah, I think just being surrounded by, I wouldn't say like-minded kids, but I think sometimes, depending on where you are, everybody has different motivations of why they get into sport, and I think that club kind of gets in a situation where people are striving to obviously better themselves, better, you know, themselves in the sport, and then also just, I think being a part of it just allows like lifestyle, enhancements as well, and
Yeah.
so. I don't know. I think that that was kind of one of the main factors and why I chose to do it. And I think, I don't know, thinking back now on how much time it was, I was
Hmm.
like, man, that was a lot, but I don't regret a thing. So,
Nice. And then after high school, college was next. How did you what was your path to Nebraska?
yeah. So when I was 12, I kind of sat down with my parents when I started club and, like we're going to set some goals. And so I set three goals of one, I wanted to start varsity as a freshman. I wanted to go to college to play volleyball, and then I wanted to be an Olympian. And I would walk around and say, like, I'm gonna be an Olympian one day, like people are probably like, this girl is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and I obviously wanted to play in college, and I think, Nebraska seemed like the most obvious answer, right? Being
Yeah.
45 minutes from home, my family could be there, and we were really good. It made the most sense. So it was an easy decision for me to kind of have that kind of solidified when I was a sophomore in high school,
Hmm.
actually. Which at the time was one of the earlier commitments. But yeah, I just knew early on that's something I wanted to do, and be in front of a home crowd that would have been, it was such a dream of mine. So I'm really glad I got to make that decision and stay close to home.
Yeah, and when Kelly was on, she talks about how basically it's, when they bring in recruits and they bring them into the arena, she said, "Yeah, we've been sold out probably longer than you've been alive." And it's like,
Yes.
"Holy cow, that's wild."
It is. It's really special, and the state is so like behind it, which is so unique, and I think that's what, even bringing pro in now, it's like it's interesting to see how like the state responds, and like what, how are they gonna, have this other entity of volleyball that,
Right.
it's not the Huskers or the Blue Jays, so
Yeah.
it's interesting. So.
Yeah. And now, from looking back on your years at Nebraska, what were some of the highlights that really stick out for you?
Yeah, so when I came in my freshman year, we were already like really good. We were ranked number one in the country. And so as a freshman walking into that, you're like, man, am I gonna have an impact? What is my impact gonna be? Like,
Right.
can I play? Right. And all of a sudden now everybody's matching your talent where, when you're a senior in high school, you're like, oh, top dog.
Right.
And so I feel like I was definitely humbled a lot my freshman year of just like, all right, now what are you going to do that's different, and what's going to set you apart, and what else is going to come out of you. And so um, we had a great year my freshman year. We made it all the way to the finals, and we ended up losing to Washington, which in turn ended up being a good lesson going into my sophomore year, where we came and actually walked away with a national championship
Wow.
that year. And I equate that to really off-season work. We went to China. We did a lot of cultural work, like
Hmm.
interpersonally, and I think that really set us up for success that year. The following year, we returned almost everyone, and then we had another National Player of the Year that graduated, that came back. We should have been even better, but I think team dynamics got in the best of us, and
Yeah.
unfortunately had a little disappointing season that year. And then my senior year, I think that nobody believed that we had graduated four All-Americans and two National Players of the Year, and they're like, this is going to be a rebuilding year. And I think me and the two other seniors, Amanda and Racheal, which are still two of my closest friends today, like we were like, no, like we have the power to make something special out of this, and we're gonna do everything we can, and try everything we can. And so that first weekend we came out, we beat Stanford and who was it? USC the first, Stanford, no, Stanford, and I'm gonna mess it up. Someone else.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're not supposed to win that first weekend, and I think we shocked a lot of people, but we believed in ourselves. And I think even though we lost in the Final Four, I think you would ask any team, that team won a national championship in our mind. It was
Yeah.
like we won without winning. And I think that's been like the model that I've just kind of led success by, is like you can have the trophy at the end,
Hmm.
but it's also how you feel about the trophy. And I'm getting off topic and talking a lot.
That's all right.
But the point is I think there is like little lessons along the way, and each year had a very like integral year of lessons and things that I can take away.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you just touched on, as a freshman coming in, you're leaving high school playing club where you're the top dog, you're the starter. It's an adjustment now, from a mental standpoint too. It's like, am I even going to be playing? That's got to be. And as a young person, you're college, new world. It's just, that's a lot to take on.
It is. And I think if anything, what I've learned in life is that you have to go through hard to actually become better,
Hmm.
And so when the mountain feels so large, like it's just taking one day at a time and breaking it down and falling in love with the process. Because I look back now on that freshman year and I'm so grateful. Like in the moment, I was like, this sucks,
Yeah.
but I think it made me a better uh, player for sure,
Hmm.
and if not a better teammate also, and a better person. And so I think there's only good to come from hard.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then, after your college was done, was going pro a no-brainer for you then at that point?
Yeah, so obviously I wanted to be an Olympian. I didn't know what that meant really. I mean, I was like, oh yeah, I watched it on TV, but I didn't know the pathway, right? And uh actually one of the alumni in Nebraska, Nancy Metcalf, she had been playing with our national team and was playing overseas. And so I had a couple conversations with her of like, well, what does it look like? And she's like, well, I'm playing in Azerbaijan. I'm like, where? Like, what is that?
Right.
And you have to do that to even go play on the national team. Like, what is happening,
Yeah.
And so I got asked to come train with the national team like right out of college, but I had gone and played a season in Puerto Rico just shortly after that.
Yeah.
Um, and then my first year on the national team, I got a contract in Russia, which was a little bit of a culture shock.
I
And
bet.
I was like, if this is what I have to do to be an Olympian and where I wanted to see myself, like I'm diving all in. So, um, yeah, had to do that and just kind of kept doing that.
That's crazy. And that, looking back on those years of having to leave home and go, that's got to be one of looking back on it, some of the biggest sacrifices you had to make the national team and just, make being a pro a part of your career.
Yeah, it was. And I think at the time too, it's like, God, you're like, can I do this? Is this the right thing? Is this really what I want to do? And in the moment, it's like the days pass so slow. And now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, those are the greatest years, and
Yeah.
I wish I would have cherished maybe a little bit more. I tried, you try in the moment, but when you're away from home, it's all you want to be is home. But then you come home and you're like, well, not much has changed here. So like, it's just so while it was hard, it was so worth it. And I'm so grateful that I got to experience other cultures and like really appreciate what we do have here.
Yeah.
It's special, and I now have friends all over the world. Like it is my brain is like, how did this small town girl like do that? It's so weird to me
Yeah.
still.
Yeah, and the other thing with that sort of that title pro athlete, I talked to Kavika a couple months ago, and it's not rainbows and unicorns. It is you're not making the big money. Even one of your teammates, Vic Savard, was on, and she was talking about her first year. She didn't even make enough money to get a place on her own.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a grind. It really is. And I think also too the cultural difference when you're playing, right? Like every country kind of values maybe something a little bit different. And it's like, how can you show your teammates that you still care and that you're trying to like meet them halfway, and then try and communicate that in a different language? Like that whole thing is, I don't know. I don't see volleyball as just an action, right? I see
Hmm.
it more relational piece that's so much deeper. And I think that was my biggest challenge was like, how can I relate to other girls and other cultures, even though we're playing the same sport,
Right.
it looks, feels very different regardless of where you're at. So, but yeah, the money piece too, it's like I feel like I've been lucky in that I have gone to a lot of, top clubs and top situations that maybe the financial piece was a little bit more
Hmm.
secure. But I do know the struggles of some of my teammates, and it's
Yeah.
not easy.
No.
Yeah.
And then, the other aspect of it too, something I've learned talking to, players that have played overseas and in different countries. When you play over, a different country, the style of play is a lot different than, than you're used to. Was that a big adjustment for you?
It definitely was. I remember when I went to Russia for the first time, I would say like my strength as a hitter is hitting the line. And like my coach was like, if you can't hit 4 to 4, like I don't know if you can play almost. And not worded like that, but it
Yeah.
was just like better learn how to like hit the shot because it's gonna be so valuable for you. And I yeah, it's just I'm grateful that the skills I learned in the national team of being able to read the game, like
Hmm.
I think you can play all different styles, but your eyes are such a way to like be able to see what's happening almost before the play happens.
Yeah.
And so while the styles are different, like my ability to read the game can translate across any style. So I think that is something that I'm uber grateful for of just even though it was hard at first to like read and use my eyes and try to track the right thing, like over time, like making the right move late was better than making the wrong move, faster,
Yeah.
And so that didn't really make sense, but you get what I'm saying. Like I think
Yeah.
that, yeah, I think that when you train, if you train it right and just slow, over time it's going to be fast and right. So I really tried to lean into that and just letting my eyes do the work.
All
So.
right. And looking back those years playing pro, what were some of the tougher things those first few years?
Yeah, well, I was actually married at the time, and he was traveling with me. Actually, the club had paid for him to
Oh,
travel
wow.
everywhere. So yeah, I was very grateful for that because the language barrier was pretty hard. I think I only had a couple teammates on my team that spoke a little English.
Hmm.
So I think that was hard. And I think coming out of the college system, I wasn't expecting how, I wouldn't say it was pretty transactional. It
Yeah.
was
It's a
like,
business.
yeah, like you're here to perform. I'm going to pay you and you better show up. And if
Yeah.
you can't execute, like we'll find someone else. Like that if that doesn't make you get better, I'm not sure what does.
Right. Yeah.
So, I think that the relational piece I really missed early on of just like how am I going to connect? How can I still find satisfaction in what I'm doing, even though it is very transactional. And so I had to a couple times talk to the team through a translator because I
Yeah.
really wanted to articulate my passion and my love for each of them of like, hey, I'm here for all of you and I want to win and this is how I know how to win. So I never wanted that to like come across in a way that wasn't, authentic. So
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things when I talked to Justin Louis, the Team Canada setter. He, when he's playing over there, he's like, "Yeah, I'm the only Canadian," and it is tough, and it's so nice when you find somebody who speaks your language at least.
yes, yes. And yeah, and it's like so comforting because you're like, and then I think it actually made it easier coming back into the national team gym because it was like, well, if we can all speak the same language and we can't get on the same page, then we got bigger problems,
Hmm.
And so that was always a breath of fresh air of coming back to the national team was like, oh, all right, like this should be clear and we can get to that. And I think working through those communication challenges, help set up for success. And I will say, like, when I was in Russia, I would say the travel was tough, right? Like we were doing overnight trains and then having to perform, and the cold, it wasn't
Yeah.
ideal. So, but all in all, my experience in Russia was awesome, and I am really grateful for that time.
Nice. And then you're looking at, looking back on those years playing pro. You were Italy, Puerto Rico, Russia, Turkey, some really cool places. What were some of the highlights? You look back, it's like, wow, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think Russia, I think everyone has a maybe perception of what that is, and I would be lying to say that I didn't as well, they come across a little bit colder and, not as open,
Hmm.
but I found that to be not the case, and I really found that obviously they love sport, they love to win, and also they just like to have a good time.
Yeah.
They are fun people, um, and I think that when I signed there, it was they had just moved up to the second from the second league to the first league, and so. And then they're like, we're going to bring in all these national team players. And I was like, really? So we just kept getting better as the
Yeah.
years went on. And I think winning championships there was so much fun. And I think my favorite years were we were able to win Champions League for the first time in the club history, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I actually left that year, and then I went to Turkey the next year, which I could have stayed another year in Russia, which I thought about it, but I really wanted something new.
Yeah.
And so I went to Azajabashi, and we actually went on to win Champions League that year as
Oh,
well.
wow.
So winning back-to-back Champions League, which is really hard to do anyways to win
Mm-hmm.
Champions League, and with two different teams and two very different identities as teams. But I don't know, those couple years there were pretty special. So
Nice.
yeah, and then let's fast forward to obviously my time in Turkey was amazing. I really enjoyed every year, challenging playing in China. I was too during COVID, so that was a little
Oh,
hard.
God.
I quarantined twice, which was, I'm a pretty like, I don't know, emotionally tough person, but
Yeah.
that quarantine really got me.
Oh,
So, but Shanghai is an amazing city. I had a great time. And then Italy, wow, I didn't understand. Everybody talked about it,
mm-hmm.
until you're there, and I visited a couple times, but like living there, I was like, oh yeah, I get it now. This makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, the people, the way they do life, and just the way they love volleyball, really, like it's really cool to be a part of. And I'm glad I kind of got that at the tail end of my career,
Yeah.
and I got a piece of it, and it was amazing. So I really miss that part of it.
Nice.
So.
And let's go back, to that moment when you signed a contract to play in Russia. What was mom and dad's reaction?
Yeah. They're like, what? What's going on? And obviously it was in Kazan, which is like halfway between Moscow and Siberia. So they're
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? What's happening? And so um yeah, it's I don't know. I think there was a little assurance because I was married, and so
Yeah.
like him being able to travel with me, I think there was like, all right, well, you guys will get through it
Yeah.
together. So
All right.
but I don't even think we knew what we were getting ourselves into. I mean, the first night we got there, now I know he was our translator, but barely spoke any English when we got there. And he picked us up from the airport. No words spoken, really. We get to the apartment and we go to want to take a shower
Yeah.
where we're trying to turn on the lights. Well, the lights just go out. Like we have no lights.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
we're like showering with like computer light. And then we go to lay down in bed and we realize there's only a box spring. And so it's just like, I was like, this is what we're getting ourselves into.
Right.
Here, how do we make it something exciting?
Yeah.
So it was
Oh, God.
challenging, but ended up being one of the greatest
Yeah.
experiences.
And now for those college kids, that are thinking about, hey, let me go play pro for a year. What kind of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I think just like immense, like immerse yourself into the culture as best as you can, and really just try to take in and learn, right? It's not going to be easy, but again, I think sitting on this side of it, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
And embrace just the different opinions, I think you're going to come across people that you're like, huh, why do you think like that? But then I think seeking to understand, right? Really being quick to listen versus quick to judge. And I think you're actually going to take in more than you realize and be grateful that you did it.
Yeah.
Versus, I don't know, I think we can all get stuck in this side of fear, like
Mm-hmm.
fear of the unknown, fear of what's coming. Everybody kind of does that.
Yeah.
But I think just diving in is huge.
All
So.
right. And then, as the national team, you said you sort of it popped up on your radar, sort of your first year pro playing in Puerto Rico. How, what was your path to, getting, your jersey?
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously got asked to come out to the national team, and within the first couple weeks, he was the coach, and he's like, "Hey, if you don't, okay," he's like, "Not if you don't change, but I'm gonna teach you some new technique." And he's like, "I know you've learned one way, and you've been good for a long time, but we need to get you to be more efficient." And I was like, "Okay, what does that mean?" He's like, "Well, we're gonna reteach you everything." And I was
Oh
like,
my
"What?"
God.
So, and if you don't like kind of change, like you're not going to be in the gym. I'm
Yeah.
like,
And now who was the coach back then?
that was Hugh McCutcheon.
Okay.
So
Yep.
he was at Minnesota for a little
Yep.
while, and yeah, so which to me still to this day like one of the all-time greatest teachers. Like I learned so much, and I'm grateful for his ability to teach. And so I relearned how to pass. I relearned how to swing.
Yeah.
Like my swing changed, my ability to approach, and to this day, like really, I don't think I would be the player without it. And I am so grateful because I think diving into that change really helped me again just be the player I am.
Yeah.
I would be without it. So yeah.
Now let's go back. First of all, here you are coming off of a national championship. Like I'm good, and now they're
Yep.
telling you you've got to relearn everything. That's just like you're like, oh my god, you must be like just blowing up your mind at that point.
Yes, because I'm just like again, I think you go from like you said, like freshman year or high school, senior to freshman, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like wait, aren't I not good enough? You know?
Right.
And you could say that, like, but then that's like you for me, like getting stuck in your ego.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, well, I'm just good enough and I've arrived. And it's like I think that's where mistakes happen is like when you stop learning. And so I could have gone into that gym and told Hugh, like, what are you talking about? Like, I know exactly what I'm doing.
Right.
But I chose the latter and I really wanted to be and I still, right? I really want to, I have so much to learn, I feel still, and so much that I think the game is evolving constantly
Yeah.
that like being open-minded as much as you can. And yeah, it was hard though. I mean, there was days that I was like, is this actually going to work? But I think that allowing your brain to kind of let that happen and to realize that like you're probably going to fail before you get better.
Yeah.
And it's a learning process and like really falling in love with that. So I'm so grateful as you can imagine.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, it's been fun.
And now, what was that? Do you still remember that moment you walked into the gym and there's the senior team there? I was like, oh wow, I'm here.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of lucky in the fact that usually the first year after the Olympics, most people retire like or take a summer off.
Yeah.
And so when I came in, it was the year after the 2008 Olympics. So I came in and it was actually a lot of us newbies, you could
Oh,
say, or
okay.
graduates. And so some of the vets weren't even there, which I think allowed us to be able to really learn,
Yeah.
and not that we couldn't learn with them there, but I think um, giving us time and giving us playing time like allowed us to kind of catch up to speed quicker than maybe being able to not do that. So I I'm grateful for that summer and being able to learn as much as I did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. When I was talking to Micah, he said, when he got in there, he was just grateful to be mopping up the floor. Just like he was
yeah.
just in awe. And it was just, yeah, it sounds like an amazing experience.
It is. And again, you're around like-minded people and people that really are trying to
Yeah.
push the edge of their craft. So it's fun.
And now, do you remember when you got, the call that, hey, you're going to your first Olympics?
Yeah. I still get chills. Wow, just even you saying that, it's crazy. So most of the time leading up to the Olympics, I was starting, right? So
Hmm.
you would assume that I was probably going to be going, but until you hear those words, you never want to assume, right?
Right.
And so the summer leading up to it, was still playing in Russia. I came back. We had our first tournament, and they said that they would probably tell us like a month out from the Olympics. And so we had team meeting. We had individual meetings with all the coaches, and I remember walking into Hugh's office, and all four coaches were sitting there just in a line, and Hugh goes, "Well, Jordan, we'd like to tell you that you're a member of the 2012 Olympic game or Olympic team." And I just sat there and I was just like, this is actually happening. Like,
Yeah.
it just until it hits you that time, it's like you can't really put into words what it means. So I still can't believe it. There's
Yeah.
days I'm just like, did this life happen? Like I can't, I can't understand. So
Yeah.
I'm lucky in that.
And how about that moment you got your jersey and you saw Larson on the back of it? It was just,
Yeah.
do you still like, is that still like a flashbulb moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, I will always remember also opening ceremonies, like walking in, with team, like it's a different level of intensity when all of Team USA comes together. I
Hmm.
think that's what makes Team USA unique is that we all don't train in one facility. It's like over 600 athletes all of a sudden are walking in as one like United
Yeah.
States. Like it is like the most like I can't even describe the emotion because it's like you all of a sudden you feel like you're always feeling it's something more than you, but
Hmm.
I think that moment itself, and then also when you're standing atop of the podium, like hearing your national, like all those things, right?
Yeah.
Like those moments, like make you feel like, all right, this is so much bigger than me. Like
Yeah.
it is, I know we're not the military, we're not fighting for life or death, but it feels like I get to represent the flag for something bigger. So
Right.
it's cool.
Amazing. And now, what's it like when you all get back together after, it's your first practice, like, say for the, before Paris, everybody got together and is it just like that first practice is nothing's going to happen. Everybody's just catching up with each other.
Exactly. I remember actually this year, our strength coach, like we were stretching and he's like, um, we were all chatting and he's like trying to like run us through a warm up. And I'm like, I know, just give us some time, give us day one,
Yeah.
because it's just like we are all just excited to be back together and excited for what's to come. I think there's this anxiousness, but also like excitement for the summer. And but yeah, it's really special. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to Shannon Windsor there a couple of months ago, and it was the same thing. They just know. They know that first day, nothing's get done, bringing coffee, donuts, and everybody will just, that's what it is.
Exactly, exactly. So it's which I maybe we should do that more. It's just like we're having a team dinner and then we can have practice
Yeah.
because everybody's gonna get it over with. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. And then, so, you got through, London was 2012, right?
correct. Yep.
Then you had Rio 2016. Again, another
Yep.
Olympics for you, the invite to go, any memorable sort of moments that came out of that one?
Yeah. I think that that team was just so special. We had really good leadership in Courtney Thompson, Krista Harmata, Alicia Glass, Toma Miyashiro. Toma didn't go, but Toma was also part of that, and just um, I don't know how to like explain it. We were obviously a talent, like we were a talented team, but I think we had the pieces that were just good people trying to show up for one another,
Yeah.
and you could really feel that. And I think even though most of us, I would say most of us, some of us were at the 2012 Olympics and how that felt, not great.
Yeah.
Obviously, walking away from silver, they're like, what? It's not great. But I think walking away with the bronze and how we went about it, I
Hmm.
think people would say that was a better outcome for us
Yeah.
than silver was. So on paper, that's the thing is like on paper, sometimes it's not always how it feels.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And then, you got Tokyo, which, Eric described walking into the opening ceremonies as just so surreal because it's empty. But Tokyo was a big one for you guys, though.
yeah. Um, Unreal. I think if you would ask me though in 2020 if the Olympics were going to happen then,
Yeah.
I don't know if we were ready. Our team was a little disjointed, and I think COVID really set us up for success health-wise, right? I
Yeah.
think we all kind of took some time off. We really regrouped culturally and kind of created a deeper meaning for why we played. And role clarity was so clear in Tokyo. When we hit the court, we knew exactly what everyone needed to do to execute, and it was so like just on point. It
Yeah.
was this day, it was living a dream. It really was. It was, and I remember like Fluka, we had just lost to Russia, I think. And it was the meeting afterwards. She's like, or no, it was leading into, quarterfinals. So quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. And she's like, I think we're gonna be clinical. And I looked at her and I was like, girl, dude, like clinical. Like that means like then we 3-0-3. I don't even know if it's ever happened in the history of the Olympics of 3-0 sweep for every single game. Like
Wow.
I never would have imagined. So it was a really special group. Also,
Yeah.
sorry, this little one is
That's
she's
okay.
she's snoring away now.
It's
Well, if you
awesome.
hear it, it's not me, it's her.
There we go. It's all good. And after Tokyo, did you think there was another Olympics, in the menu
No,
for you?
absolutely not. I had just gotten remarried and I was at a place of like, all right, I'm at peace, like I can walk away, and was feeling really good about that. And yeah, just some life events happened and I was like, okay, well, I obviously stopped because I was in a place of I was feeling good, but
Yeah.
it wasn't because that I didn't not love the game anymore. And I was like, well, maybe I could go back and see what happens. And maybe it's just a defined like, nope, you're done. That's
Yeah.
it. Great. And so I went and played in Italy. And then I realized like, oh my gosh, I still love this so much. And I think me returning to the national team was obviously like, I think every player has a motivation to play,
Hmm.
right? Like if you didn't, then I don't know why you would be in the gym. But I felt like there was more to it. It was more of like, how can I help this next generation coming in and like really teach leadership, culture, all that stuff.
Right.
Like I really felt more of a deeper meaning behind just if I could play or not.
Yeah.
So that was almost even more special for me, I think. So
Yeah. Nice. And now, with, Paris coming in, how, I guess, how did you approach Paris versus 2012, Jordan approaching, London?
yeah. Yeah, London, I was worried a little bit of just like the magnitude of the moment, and as much as we can be like, yeah, you're doing the same thing and it's just called Olympics. Like I didn't fully understand that I could be that at that
Yeah.
time as much as I wanted it to be that. Where I feel like when I got to Paris, I was like, I'm truly just embracing the moment, like
Right.
just taking it all in and like I don't know, doing the most I could to just enjoy every piece. Not that I wasn't in London, I just felt way more stress.
Yeah.
And this time I was just like, I can be here and help where I can, and that's so freeing also.
Yeah. Yeah. When I had Matt Anderson on, another four-time Olympian, I sort of got the same vibe from him. He's just like, yeah, just happy to be there.
Yeah, no, it didn't, and it's hard to like explain because people are like, you're just happy to be at the like what? It's like it is. It's a but you're just able to just be.
Yeah.
And it is like all the work that you put in, it's like,
Hmm.
all right, now I can just enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And coming away from Paris, any non-volleyball highlights that stick out for you?
Um, we just had really good dynamic as a team, I think obviously people are closer on the team than certain others, but
Yeah.
I feel like we all could be in a room and just shoot the shit and
Yeah.
like I love that. And I think there was role clarity and um yeah, we just had really good people. So I think that moments where, hey, let's go grab a drink after a game or,
Yeah.
I think that was true and real. And I know that like in the years to come too, right? Everybody's life is going to eventually,
Hmm.
move on from the sport. And I don't know, I just feel like even when we do come back together, there's going to be good vibes and a good time to reflect, which I think you always want to aim for, even if it ends on a loss, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think everybody was stoked to even be in the gold medal match. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And now looking back on that, Paris team, who was that one person that was just the tension cracker? The one that could just crack a joke and just like reset everybody.
Yeah. Goodness. I think that we all had moments of that,
Yeah.
I think some of us have had previous experience of being at the Olympics, right? And just ability to kind of help this newer generation understand kind of the weight of the moment,
Yeah.
right? Like you can let the moment take over for you, or you can be the moment kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so I think, yeah, we had a good balance. And I think we had a really good staff, I think our culture coach too, Sue Enquist, who's an absolute baller. You should have her on your podcast.
All right.
Uh, she was kind of that person too, like be able to deflate the tension and just, hey, we're here to have a good time. She like always says like, put your party dress on because we're here to party,
Yeah.
because not actually party, but you know what I'm saying? We're here to celebrate. Like,
Right.
big deal that we're here. And the fact that we get to go out and do what we love every day, like, why not?
Yeah. And now one of those assistant coaches is now coaching in the Love League, right?
Yes, Toma. Yes. Yeah. And it's so cool to see her now in the head coaching role. And sounds like all the girls love her and she's doing a great job. And obviously, being a former teammate as well, like, she's just a rock star human. So,
Yeah.
if you're an awesome human, people want to play for you. So it makes sense. So
Yeah.
I'm really stoked for her. And obviously, the years of dedication that she's given to our national team too is awesome.
Yeah. And now one more question on the national team. Was there one drill that you just, Karch had you guys do that you just dreaded every time he said, we're going to do this?
We're gonna do this drill. Um, I'm probably the wrong person to
Oh,
talk to.
okay.
I think that I think there are moments that like, there's certain days you're like, I really don't want to do this, but I've had to learn that like if I want to be great, I gotta love it all,
Hmm.
So if it's days that I have to lie to myself, like I'm gonna lie to myself. But I will say that we do this one. They used to be called ball setter, ball hitter, but like when I was young, it was like so monotonous and like, but that's what helped train me. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, why would I hate something that help me be the player I am today, And so, but there are days where I was like, no, I don't want to do this. So, but I think it's real, I think it's real to acknowledge that, but I think it's how and what you tell yourself is also true.
Yeah.
So,
But you bring
yeah.
up a good point that, any of the young kids that are listening, if you want to be better, you've got to do these drills.
Yeah. And some are monotonous but
Yeah.
that's also like being good over time. Like, it's so true. Like, falling in love with the monotony is like the worst words you want to hear, but like it's the truest it could be.
Yeah.
And um I think it just gets down to like, how can I be good today? And if I have these constraints and this is the drill that's being provided,
Hmm.
how can I be good within the drill?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
And now, speaking of time, when Matt was on, we talked, he talked about how over time he had to learn what his body needed, whether it was rest and, stretching just to make that longevity to last this long. How about you? You've doing this for so long. Have you sort of the same figure out what works and, sort of you listen to your body more?
exactly. Yeah. I think you do get smarter as you get older. And as much as coaches are hammering in like recovery, it's like, well, what does recovery mean to you? And I think it's different for every athlete. I think I found putting time in the weight room, taking shorter contracts, not playing as long, like longer term,
Hmm.
short and concise. Lots of time in the weight room, pushing heavy weight. And then for me, the one thing that's led to a lot of success, I feel, is obviously eating well as you can. I'm also have a sweet tooth at heart. Um, uh, I do a pretty like extensive blood test, so I take certain vitamins to help kind of recovery base. Obviously, great sleep is huge. And then I really get behind massage therapy. I probably get a massage twice a week.
Yeah.
I found that it's helps my muscles the most. Cold tub for me, not a huge fan.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't, the ice piece of it makes my joints really lock up. So those are things that have been really beneficial for me. But again, I think it is finding, like you said, like finding what works for you. And
Yeah.
I know some people that they love the cold tub and they can't ever go away from it. So I think it's just knowing your body and knowing what you need.
Yeah. And the other piece of it too, like you touched on it, nutrition. Nutrition is so important. And, these young kids that are coming into the gym with their Starbucks or their Dunkin',
Yep.
enjoy that while it lasts because that's a short window.
Exactly. Well, and I think Starbucks really, I also love Starbucks, but I think it's also what you're drinking at Starbucks, right? That could be the dangerous
Yes,
part. But
that's true.
it is true. No, it is. It's hard because like when you're young, it's like you feel like you're invincible and people can tell you that to your blue in the face,
Yeah.
but it does start to add up and adds up over time. But if you do want to have a long career, it's really important.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Now, something I got to see last summer, I took my daughter up, we saw the VNLs in Ottawa. They
oh
do
yeah.
such a wonderful job. And like for you guys, your VNLs were in like Rio, Texas, and some amazing places.
Yes. Yeah, no, I will give it to yeah, the FWB of like really expanding the sport and traveling to places that, people dream of playing and living and, so but it's a lot in the body too. When you're traveling from country to country, it
Hmm.
is a lot, but it is cool that we get to kind of tour the world and see the world.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's the other thing that I've noticed, since jumping into this, as a professional volleyball player, you don't have many windows to relax, especially if you're playing on a national team and it's full circle every year or for the whole
it
year.
it is, yeah. And again, I think I've learned to take it as a mental challenge, like how good can I be even though I don't get much time off. And again, you can sit in the, oh poor me, like, oh poor you, you get to play professional ball.
Right.
It's like everybody wants what they don't have, kind of. And
Hmm.
then I'm so grateful that I get to be able to do what I do. But there are days where I'm like, actually sitting on a beach for a week is kind of nice.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so but yeah, I've really just fallen in love with, I love the sport and I love being in the gym and how
Yeah.
can I get better every day. So
Nice. And then, there's one other aspect to that, to being a professional that, a lot of people don't realize. It's that social media aspect of it, like trying to keep the noise out. How do you keep sort of a mental focus and block that noise?
yeah, I've been pretty lucky that I haven't received too much, I'm gonna say hate,
Yeah.
or things, but there's been pieces of it where it's like, at the end of the day, like, your truth, and how you've tried to execute every day, and you're the measure of how you go about that. And nobody truly knows that inside s- piece of that. And
Yeah.
so it's easier from the outside to say things, or, and at the end of the day, they don't really know. And
Yeah.
so you get to, as long as you're living to your truth and you feel like that's the right way, then you get to live with that. And but yeah, it is challenging. And I see it now a lot with our youth, it's
Yeah.
even worse, and I feel for them that they have to manage even more than I've ever had to.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And now love. How did that all come together? That moment in the sun is like, I'm coming home to play pro.
yeah. Well, there's been moments of my career, as we talked about, retirement, and what does that look like, and how can I still have an impact on the sport if that is me not playing, or if it is me playing, like what does that still look like? And so this opportunity came available, and I was like, I question every day, like, can I still get it done? Is it still how I want to get it done? Like,
Mm-hmm.
am I showing up how I want to do it? And so obviously, there's a lot of competing leagues going on right now, PBF, and now another one. I don't even know that
Yeah. That
MBM
one makes
something.
no sense to me, but hey.
Yeah, so I'm still learning, and so I really enjoyed just League One's presence and like
Mm-hmm.
what they are trying to do bigger than the sport itself, which
Yeah.
is giving back to the community and helping these younger athletes coming through the club kind of seeing what pro life is. And so we kind of have a light touch on the youth, as far as, we get to meet with them once a week. And
Yeah.
I feel like there's actually this, translation of like what I know, what can I do to help kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I love that piece of it. So for me, that was kind of one of the major reasons why I signed on with League One. And then obviously too, I think the talent, right? Like I think we have 10 of the last 13 Olympians and a lot of international players that are coming and playing. And so that's been really fun to dive into and
Yeah.
start something new. Like it's been so fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. And now I got to think, you veterans that played overseas are sitting around the locker room telling these youths, like, hey, Rook, you don't know how good we have it right now.
Oh, yes, it is. Everybody's like, what do you think? And like, they want feedback. And I'm just like, the fact that I can drive like 10 minutes to practice, like on my own home, like this is amazing. Like I'm just so great. And the fact that like we have, I don't know, it feels professional to me. And
Yeah.
I'm really, really grateful. So yeah, nothing to complain about.
And
So.
now, when it comes to game day, do you have any rituals, any, superstitions that, okay, I got to make sure this is right, or, I need a nap?
Yeah, no. I would say I'm very routine based on game day, right? Like there's certain things that, I have the same breakfast usually. I usually like to have a cup of coffee before the game. I will say the one thing that is hold true is I usually chew one piece of gum for warm up and then I'll switch for game time. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing that I have really held true since college. So that's been a long
Okay.
time coming. Yeah, but it never really turned into like I never thought about it. It was just something that I did, and like the mental space of it.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, oh my gosh, if I don't have a new stick of gum, like I'm gonna play poorly. Like that was never. It was just more of like a refreshment thing and like how I can, I don't know,
Yeah.
chew a new piece of gum.
And now,
So,
playing in love, how does this pro league differ or feel from, playing in pro leagues? Is it like a night and day difference, like from training and everything else that goes along with it, or it's pro volleyball?
um, it doesn't feel different. I think like we had said early on about just the weight of, being home
Mm-hmm.
and, more eyes of people wanting to come see and, family that haven't seen you in a while come do. And so I think that weight of it
Yeah.
but other than that, it feels very, very professional and very in tune. And so I'm grateful for that.
Nice. All right. So we got some fun questions. So Kelly was on, Kelly Honor,
Yep.
and she wants to know, How much do you miss her butter sets?
I miss them so much. I am so grateful for her and her help to like prep me for the Olympics. Like it was awesome. And I tell her every day, like even when we were practicing with the Huskers, I'm like, LA 2028? No, like I keep convincing her to have retirement, especially now with all these leagues happening. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, there has to be something. So I don't know, she's great and it's been fun to get to know her. And obviously I think that being back in Nebraska now, like connecting with a lot of alum
Mm-hmm.
that maybe weren't my generation, like I'm like, oh, we've had so many good people through the program and like it's awesome.
Yeah. Nice.
So
And now, what was your favorite set to hit?
favorite set. I would say I like to hit a bic, but I'm not good at it. Like
Yeah.
it's one of the things that I'm like not hitting consistently or people would want to set me. But I like the feeling that it has,
Yeah.
those kind of things.
All
So,
right. So I was talking to Eric Shoji. I told him you were coming on, and he
yep.
said his question was, "Who are your favorite sushi dates with?"
Of course, him. We have a standing one in I think we went to Laguna. I'm probably gonna mess it up. No, it was in Long Beach. There's a place in Long Beach that's like unreal.
Yeah.
So, and he always found it. So, no, yeah, definitely him.
What drills or techniques do you find most effective for improving your hitting accuracy or power?
Yeah, I think for me, people think that power comes from the shoulder, right? And how hard you can hit it, but
Yeah.
I think power comes from your actual hips and your torso. So if you can get your hips to go first and just let your arm go, actually it kind of generates more power and speed. And so if your arm is up in time, it actually can outquick the block, and you can generate a lot more power from your hips. And I would say, as far as hitting accuracy, is being able to have the ability to have vision,
Yeah.
right? So I oftentimes as hitters, we kind of go up and we predetermine where we're going to hit, which is fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
In general, I have a knowledge of like, hey, they're probably going to take my line, but okay, if I know that and I know what the situation is presenting itself, then I can make an educated decision in the moment. So I think that comes with time,
Yeah.
experience of being able to see what's happening in front of me and then being able to make the appropriate shot at that time. So, um, yeah,
All right.
but yeah, decisions.
Yes, absolutely. And now, how do you, if you have a couple of bad plays, what's your go-to thing to reset?
So we actually work with a sports psych called Ken. His name is Ken Revisa. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple years ago. But he worked with a lot of baseball players, and he worked about his big thing was mainly like a lot of focal points. So maybe you walk into a gym, you see something, and that's kind of your point of contact that you go to. But one thing that resonated with me is that you'll see a lot of pitchers, like they'll step off the mound and then step back on the mound.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more of this reset technique of just like, all right, this play happened. How can I step in? And then I'm not going to like step back in until I'm actually ready.
Yeah.
And so I think I apply it to a lot of before I'm entering the gym, right? So sometimes I'll sit in my car for a couple minutes until I'm actually ready to present myself for the day.
Yeah.
And then you'll see me also too in the game, like sometimes between plays, I'll step to the end line, and then I'll step back in to serve receive.
Yeah.
And that kind of happens. It's not a selfish thing. It's more of just my brain, like a trigger to reset of just like, well, that just happened. Now, how can I be in this moment right now?
Yeah. All right. I think Matt Anderson referenced the same thing, but I may edit this out. He was talking about pooping on the pitcher's mound and then, coming out. It's like,
Yep. I
okay.
like it.
All right.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm not sure if the men worked with Ken that same year. They might have, but
Yeah.
I remember Viz's big thing was one of those things. And also like we would stand in the room sometime and he'd walk around like, are you here? Are you present? Are you here? Right. I think so much of our brain wants to go other things, thinking about other things that are happening around us versus like living in the moment.
Yeah.
And so how much of our time can we get our brain to get back to the here and now and the decision that is the next right decision?
Yeah.
It sounds so nuanced, but like when you're in it, like it makes sense.
Yeah. All right.
Well, like this lady is crazy. I don't know what she's talking about, but like in high performance, like so much of your brain is just like, but
Yeah.
like the more you can stay present and in the action, the better you're actually making decisions at the moment.
All right. Now another fun question. So I had, Eric and Taylor have this thing, toughest position in volleyball. So Jordan, what is the
Yeah.
toughest position in volleyball?
I think for me, I think it would be middle blocker. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, for them, I played it for a hot second and I was like, get me out of here. Like you're having to read, you're having to be athletic. Like half the time you're like, where is the ball even?
Right.
Like you're working your butt off in trans and I think they don't get enough credit. They jump every play and it's
Mm-hmm.
like you don't get set hardly ever. It's like, what am I doing? So I think they have one of the harder
Yeah.
jobs
You
for
get
sure.
pushed around, and if you miss a block, where were you?
Exactly. It's all
Yeah.
your fault. It's like, listen, I'm working my tail off here. Like, why don't you do your job? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that they do. Yeah.
Excellent. And then recently I had Christian Huron, who's the PME volleyball guy. He's on everybody's TikTok. And he was telling me that, when he was at the VNLs, he had the question, what's the easiest position? So I was like, oh, that's a good one. So, some
Ooh.
people may not want to step into that one, but,
Yeah, that is a good thing. I mean, I think everything has its own challenges, obviously. You could say based off of skills. I mean, like a libero, like only
right.
technically, and they defend and sometimes set out a system. They don't even get a serve, right?
Yeah.
So based off of skill, like technically they're the less like having the less touches
Yeah.
through the play. So maybe you could equate that. But I also think because they have the less touch, you could actually quantify that that's the hardest
Right.
because moments are actually magnified more because the attention is on those contacts.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's
Well,
yeah.
I had Mason
Don't
Briggs
don't tell
on.
Eric. Don't tell Eric that. He'll probably kill me.
Okay, we
So
won't. But I had Mason Briggs on, and he said, the toughest position is being a libero because you have one thing, and that's it. And then when Vic Savard was on, she asked me, all right, who said libero? I said, Mason. She laughed at that, and
yep.
it was a great conversation. But yeah, we won't let Eric know.
No. I can tell. So
All right. And away from the court, what are some of the things you enjoy? You got a new puppy. What
new
else?
puppy. Yeah, I enjoy just spending time with like good people, like good dinners, like I like to golf as well
Yeah.
when it's nice. Actually today in Nebraska, I was like, today you can actually go out. I'm like
Nice.
in January, like who would have thought? So but yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I really don't have time.
Yeah.
I'm not like I get home from practice and I'm like I can't move. So but yeah, I'm now being home too. I now get to see a lot of my friends'
Nice.
kids that when you're gone for 15 years, now your friends' kids are 15 and you're
Yeah.
like, wait,
What
where did
happened?
this go? Yeah. I'm like, I thought life still was the same. No? So yeah, that's been really fun and cool to be a part of that
Yeah.
again. So,
And a little bit ago, you touched on about, what impact you're going to have on volleyball or what's next. So for you, what's next? Will you dip your toes back into coaching maybe? I know you're stepped away from the Nebraska coaching thing. And, I was
yep.
like, there's only so much time in the year. And I'm sure you just want to have a break. But like after you sort of, you're done, what do you think you'll end up doing from a volleyball standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I know right now.
Yeah.
I did actually really love the coaching piece of it. I think now seeing and what I know about playing and
Yeah.
what would have learned quicker, being able to translate that to them. And I think that also to like this like watch sounds so bad watching them fail,
Mm-hmm.
right? But failing in a way that allows the learning curve to happen even faster.
Yeah.
I It's so fascinating and I love kind of also the off-court stuff of listening to the struggles that they have,
Mm-hmm.
how we can work towards just being good over time. Like I love that piece of it. So
Yeah.
I could see myself in,
Down
a
the road.
coaching
Yeah.
kind, yes. Obviously now I'm just present with love right now,
Yeah.
and kind of see where the year goes. But I also am taking a couple trips here soon, so because
Nice.
I feel like I've put time in, then I'm like, all right,
Oh, you
I need to.
deserve it. Oh, totally. Absolutely. But now, one more question on the Nebraska thing. When you went there and started being, being an assistant coach, what was anything surprised you, like behind the scenes, like, oh my God, oh, so this is how things work.
Yeah, you know, I was married to a head coach for a hot second, so I kind of got the behind the scenes a little
Ah,
bit.
okay. Yeah.
So I kind of knew. just the conversations or, things that, happened. I will say that, um, I don't know. I think the game has evolved a lot, and I think my 12-year-old self of what, certain perceptions or
Yeah.
things, it maybe not to the truest of things that I thought. And
Yeah.
but I think that everyone's learning, everyone's trying to be the best, and you can't blame something that they don't know if they've never gone that way or
Yeah.
done things. So it's like I also know that I'm different, like
Mm-hmm.
I think differently. I've had life experiences that have allowed me to think differently. So
Right.
who am I to say that what I do is right? Because it's
Yeah.
not, but it's stayed true to me. So I think it's a good lesson of just remaining open and remaining open to learning and what I can take
Yeah.
and what, yeah, I don't want to take. And I think it's all right. So
Nice. Yeah, some of the coaches I've had on, I think Matt Ulmer described that, the assistant coaches are like that big, fun, happy uncle, it's like,
yes.
okay, they're the ones that the players will go to is like, oh, great. But it's just like, that's an easier one than, that next chair up it's a night and day
It
thing.
it really is. It really is. And I think that it's fascinating, right? Because it's like who they are as people, sometimes is exactly how they show, and then there's sometimes it's not, and so it's
Yeah.
like, um, yeah, I mean, I think about my relationship with Karch, for example, right? I was lucky enough to see him my first couple years as a national team as an assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously moving on to him being the head coach, where I feel like I'm grateful for the time as assistant because I was able to build like a pretty solid, like just foundation of like he knows who I am
Right.
and I know who he is. And now when he's the head coach, yes, he still has the power to make whatever decision he
But
wants
it's a
for
more
me.
comforting thing for you. Like, okay, he knows I'm not dogging this or whatnot.
Exactly. And so I think that I'm grateful that we could have that progression and that I could speak freely. In any case, I think that you should. I
Yeah.
think whether the head coach for me, I think I encourage the athletes that I would work with, like go tell your truth. It's your truth. It's your experience.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's right. That's his decision or her decision to make that. But then it's a place that you can work from. Like at least you know where
Right.
you're at,
Yeah.
what you're dealing with, and then how you can maneuver and get better from there. And I think at least also what I'm seeing within this generation is like I think we can challenge our youth to have more hard conversations,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you are uncomfortable with where you're at and where you're playing or whatever, and that's okay. It happens. It's
Yeah.
sport. Like if you didn't, then I'd be like, do you actually care?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But I think it's like, can we challenge them to have a voice? And what does that voice mean? It doesn't mean you're think that you know all the answers. It's like, no, I want to get better. And like, what do I need to do to get better? And
Yeah.
if you don't like it, like it's okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just really encourage them to continue to have a voice and your voice matters. And if you're passionate about it, like kudos to you.
Yeah, and
So
that seems to be the constant or the similarity I'm seeing with a lot of the coaches that I've talked to is that open dialogue of communication, and that's rather than the old school coach of yell 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 one way communication.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And I think I am grateful for that and the movement of where coaching is going is like it's very relational
yeah,
and you know transformational versus transactional and yeah it's cool. It's really cool to see like I don't know. And people could say you're getting soft or what I think you can still get the best out of athletes by being like, hey, I really care about you, like, but we
hmm,
can't execute like this. Like that's the real.
yeah,
So, and if we can't execute it, then maybe there's going to be someone else better to fill that,
yeah,
right? That's what they have to deal with as an athlete. Like someone else is working their butt off to replace you,
right,
So,
100%. Yeah.
so it's interesting.
And now looking back, who has been sort of instrumental to sort of who you are today from club volleyball Jordan to today, four-time Olympian.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really grateful, obviously, for my parents. I came from a split home, so my parents got divorced when I was 3, but I thought my parents really did a good job of co-parenting and really, obviously, I'm also an only child. I'm not sure if I give that vibe, but I I feel like they did a really nice job of just um understanding, the weight of your word and your action and how you choose to show up in the world. And I think they did a really good job of raising me, which I think created a great foundation to when I was being coached by all the coaches along my path.
Yeah.
So my club coach, my high school coach, onto the national team, those kind of things. Like it allowed me to be a coachable athlete. I
Hmm.
think applying what the coach says, trying to do the best that you can, and continue to be a learner. And I think there are many moments along my career, and even the challenging ones, right? Like I had a couple coaches overseas that I'm like, I couldn't, I didn't understand,
Yeah.
right? Um, but I'm grateful that I was able to like meet them where they were at, do my job,
Yeah.
and we both had mutual respect by the end of the season. So I think that's ultimately what you strive for.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Jordan, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate you taking the time. But before you go, like with
Yep.
past guests, like what Kelly did to you, who do
Yep.
you have in your volleyball circle you think should come on and share their story?
Oh, goodness. Oh, I she's probably gonna hate me for this, but there's a middle blocker. She played at Croatia. Her name's Maya Poyak. I don't know if you know who that
No.
is. But she now is working for the Croatian Federation. But I played with her in Turkey. For me, one of the all-time best middle blockers. And I think I obviously admire her as a player, but I admire her more as a person and how she chose to show up in the world. Like the hardest worker I think I've ever met.
Yeah.
And just like as wholesome as it comes. Like she's gonna shoot it to you straight,
Yeah.
and I love that. And
All right.
yeah, she's great. Oh yeah, Sue Enquist. Yes.
All right.
I would suggest also just her path. She was at UCLA as a softball coach for almost 25
Oh,
years.
wow.
I want to know I think she won, I'm gonna probably misspeak, but I want to say like 10 or 11 national championships, which you think about how many years, like that's
Holy cow. Yeah.
pretty good. So
Absolutely.
obviously now she's a consultant, so she kind of goes in and measures, she's found a way to measure culture almost. I don't know, it's such a big way of winning, right? Like you can,
Yeah.
again, you have the skill, but interpersonally, like being able to measure is really hard because it's
Right.
not, you can't touch it,
Yeah.
intangible.
All right.
So she's found a way to democratize things and being able to kind of create order amongst team chaos. So
Nice.
it's been awesome to like, I think, probe her with 1,000 questions. Always,
Yeah.
I'm always, what would you do in this situation? And her mentor was John Wooden. So I'm
Oh,
like, well,
okay.
she kind of came down from that.
Yeah.
I'm eventually like gonna just speak those words. So,
Nice.
so yeah, it's been really fun getting to know her.
All
So
right. Well, hey,
yeah,
thank you again for so much for doing this. I really appreciate it and good luck with this season.
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.